Well, it was just recently the Nigerian National Assembly failed to pass the bill calling for the introduction of diaspora voting into the country's electoral schedules. Now, this was met with mixed reactions and has been generating conversations in the country and even outside the country, with millions of Nigerians living outside the country and remitting back to the nation's purses, calling for an opportunity to be a part of the electoral process makes sense to many. Now, however, some supporters of the National Assembly's decisions have said that this may be employed to the benefit of electoral malpractices. Like Nigerians in the diaspora, the country's women are also unhappy with the legislature. 5 bills proposed as part of the Constitution Amendment and all involving females were rejected. This is causing furious reactions from Nigerian women, and it is rightly so. Today on The Square, we will look at the fate of Nigerians in the diaspora and the involvement of women in the race as the clock ticks closer to the 2023 elections. Welcome to VSA. I'm Sulaiman. Well, more than 15 million Nigerians live in the diaspora, and they bring back millions, or I beg your pardon, billions of dollars every year to the purse of the Nigerian government. These Nigerians, however, don't have a say in who becomes what in their country of origin, as the Constitution doesn't provide for a diaspora vote. While this may have been defensible, some years ago, the large number of Nigerians trooping out of the country every year has made it a decision that may need to be revisited. As of 2 years ago, Nigerians in the diaspora remitted more than $20 billion into the country's purse, and according to the President, Muhammadu Buhari, this was vital in funding the budget. The continuous absence of a diaspora vote in the Constitution has for some years been questioned, and when the opportunity to make it work came, it was surprising to say it rejected. Joining me now to look at this is Nweke. He's the Chairman Emeritus Board of Trustees, Nigerians in the Diaspora Organization in Europe. Collins, good to see you and thanks for your time. Now, I know you've been following closely developments back home in Nigeria. What do you make of the decision of the National Assembly not to pass the Diaspora Voters Bill?
Appalling, quite unspeakable, Sulaiman. Sometimes I just wonder what history will tell of us who are actually occupying this Nigerian space at this time, when such history is written some 50 years from now. Just the same way we read the pages of history today and follow the discussions about the disenfranchisement of women out here in Europe who couldn't vote. Here in Belgium, where I am, it was in 1931 that women could finally vote. And so when we read the history, the pages of history of those years, we actually shiver at the fact that such a question could even be asked in the first place, And I believe that in 50 years' time, when people begin to read Nigeria's history and, play back the sort of conversation that we're having now and see that there are legislators in Nigeria who have difficulties letting their fellow Nigerians who are living outside the country and contributing immensely to the development of the country, that the question could even be asked whether they should vote or not. I think history will not remember them well. And when they go back to bed at night, I hope they will cast back their mind and think of, this sort of thing and actually begin to, think differently and act differently. This is appalling. And the time has come to call people out. The time has come to, begin to make the pendulum swing differently.
Well, have you tried to, look at some of the reasons why they rejected, being a part of history. It's a chance to be a part of history, as you rightly said. Looking back to what has happened in Belgium, some of those key voices are still very much there in the history books, that they've been so empowered that now women can vote. But for Nigerians, having a proof, a waterproof voting system could be a concern. Have you been able to also look at some of those concerns as enunciated by these legislators?
I think they are laughable. Let me say, about 10 years ago, a little more, when I was the chief executive at the headquarters of Nigerians in Diaspora organization, Europe, based in London, I could imagine that it was okay for legislators to ask those kind of questions about the security of the vote and, the manageability of the voting process in diaspora. But then, of course, at the time, we took time to actually explain to them how these things work. Nigeria is not going to be the first country or an exception to that. So it is done everywhere, and there are ways and means of doing so. And very importantly, there are Nigerians in diaspora that are actually helping to manage the voting processes in some of these advanced nations. So Nigeria has the capacity to actually set it up. So when those questions were asked in those days, we took pains and trouble to explain it, and they understood and moved on to other arguments. When those arguments come, we always, explain them very well. Now, for them to be bringing up such excuse at this time, when Nigeria has biometrics passport system, so which means that, when our passports are issued out here in the embassies and consulates and high commissions, that our data are captured, and so we are already in the system. So you know who is coming to vote and who is not coming to vote. So for those questions to be asked about, who will be eligible and so on and so forth, is just fishing for excuses. And
well, Collins, let me jump in here. Listening to you giving, your time at the office, Nigerian diaspora in Europe, sometimes these same politicians make the trip to Europe and other places where we have Nigerians to canvass, for votes or sell their manifestos. Isn't it ironic that these, group of persons that you visit can't vote for you?
That's the irony of it, and sometimes it leads you to ask if they actually know what they want. Now, when they come out here to canvass for votes, essentially what they are telling us is, yes, we recognize the power that you have. We recognize the fact that through you, families are sustained in Nigeria, and you actually step in places where government is failing. And so we know that you wield enormous influence over some of the electorates, those who are registered to vote in Nigeria. Please use that influence to get them to vote on our behalf. And then when we ask the question about, what about us? Shouldn't we be in a position to vote as well? The story changes. But I'll tell you something, Sulai. Those were conversations that we had, say, half a decade ago, because I believe that the vast majority of the legislators are actually sold to the ideas. So preaching to them is like preaching to a convert, because they are already converted to the idea. I think what has happened here is that the process was mismanaged by the institution of government that was supposed to actually handle this effectively and make sure that from both sides of the political aisles that people are galvanized and actually get them to do what they ought to do. So I think that's the issue. I think the issue was that not that the will isn't there. I believe there is sufficient will, but the process was mismanaged by the institution, the entity of government that should have done what they ought to do.
Well, I know you're not new to politics. You on your own, you've been able to also, give your bit, grassroots speaking now in Belgium. Perhaps are there things that politicians on the continent, specifically in Nigeria, should know on how to, lobby and ensure that some of these demands that are genuine in any case, because it's still, I'm still trying to make sense of it, that you jump on a plane, make that journey, and go talk to some important people, in your country who live outside. Still, they can be a part of the process. Help us make sense of how lobbying. Now, you already said these people are already in on the idea of having diaspora voting. So, what more can we say to ensure that this is revisited to ensure that coming elections will include these Nigerians who are outside?
Yeah, I think it's going to be an all of society affair. I say this because I know that diaspora voting as a topic in itself is not exclusive. I believe that the legislators, some of them, I don't believe that they are in the majority, at least as of today. Like I said, they are sold to the idea. I mean, previously they were kind of overwhelmed or ruled by fear of the diaspora being able to actually determine the outcome of election, just like women. You mentioned women at the beginning because they are also a group that was, disenfranchised. Now, rigging, both buying and all of that are still very rich in Nigeria. And so part of that fear is we might not be able to buy the diaspora vote, and they don't understand the strategy and the tactics of, decent lobbying, selling your ideas to people and, carrying them along in what you do. So I believe that we are gradually coming to that, that level in politics in Nigeria, where people have got to begin to sell ideas rather than personalities. And so when that happens, you get the diaspora, you get women and all of that. So it's ongoing conversation, but on the part of the NIDCOM, for example, Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, that is supposed to be, organizing the table and getting all of these things working, I believe that they also need to live up to their own biddings in terms of, educating and sensitizing the legislators that there is actually nothing to be fearful about, nothing to be apprehensive about, and they should do that across board, across all political parties, because as you know, to get the bill passed, you have to have 2/3 majority of the House. And there is not a single party in Nigeria that commands 2/3 of the seats in both the lower and the upper house. So it has to be across board. And rather than concentrating on just one political party because you happen to be affiliated to that political party, I think that is part of, the issue playing out here.
Now, and as we dig in deep quickly here, other Nigerians like yourself, how does this sit with them? Have you been able to gauge, their emotions? Are they discouraged? Are they optimistic that something will ultimately, give to see that this is brought back to the table?
Yeah, well, you do have it's a divided a mixed feeling, I would say. You have Nigerians out here who would say, well, it doesn't surprise me. Didn't I tell you guys? You are just wasting your time. Those guys haven't got any clue, and I wasn't expecting a different outcome. There are those who are very, very offended because they believed seriously that we had crossed this stage of trying to convince people about the sense of enfranchising the Nigerian diaspora, considering how critical they are in the development, the accelerated development of Nigeria, be it in terms of finances, like you mentioned, be it in terms of tech, social and cultural. Nigerians in diaspora. So nobody should be in the business of convincing anybody as to how much it makes sense. So you have that group of diaspora that actually feel seriously, disappointed, and then they are still ready to fight. Then there are also a group that you can say have actually given up. Okay, it's like, well, whatever you guys do out there is your business. I'm going to keep my money here. I'm not going to be part of the development of Nigeria. But I believe that once the right thing begins to happen, you are going to be able to, win those guys over. But
now let's start talking about the right things. It was, I think, the last election, specifically leading up to that last election in 2019, Nigeria's Consul General to the U.S. said the lack of credible database is what's actually affecting the implementation of diaspora voting. And is that still the case? This is 2022, and technology-wise, looking at some of the good that COVID has given to the world, should Nigeria still be looking at this statement by the Consul General to the U.S. in 2019?
Even in 2019, that argument was not a valid one. It wasn't a valid one because I'll give you two examples. Number one example is the banking sector in Nigeria. And I am in a privileged position to, make a very assertive statement about the fact that Nigeria has one of the most effective and efficient banking system in the world, where a transaction is carried out now on the minute. We send money from here, from one account to the other. The next minute, the money is on that account. This was a technology implemented in Nigeria and has continued to do well. Now, phone reception isn't very much of a problem anymore. So, and then the third one, if you allow me, is the machine-readable passports that Nigeria have that captures, the data of people. Even in 2019, it was already in place. So these are bits and pieces of evidence to tell you that if the will is there, that, building a credible database to allow for Nigerian diaspora voting is certainly doable, and it is being done in other countries. And Nigerians, for Christ's sake, are part of those driving them in other countries. So the capacity and the resources are there to get it done in Nigeria. We just have to have the will to do so.
Some have expressed fears that politicians may use such windows to their advantage at the detriment of the process and the country. For example, bringing votes from country A into the country and vice versa. Have you also weighed in such possibilities?
There might be some points about that, but there are also some points about rigging of election even within Nigeria. And I'm not talking of just Nigeria. In other parts of the world, there is always the possibility of elections being rigged. And that is why you would have to have checks and balances to ensure that that is not the case. Now, Sulai, there is every chance that when I walk out of this door, making my way home from work, that a car can run over me. Now, is that a reason not to make my way out of the door and use the public, the public space? No, I just have to take precautions. So it is the same way that you foresee or make the projection that they might be rigging, but then you find ways to forestall them. Using that as an excuse is just not acceptable. Yes, the ongoing, NIN, National Identification Number registration, there have been some allegations of, our cousins in, Niger Republic and all of that being used, being registered and getting ready for Nigerian election. I know that some legislators have some legitimate concern about that, but these are things that could be investigated and actually taken care of, and are certainly not an excuse to, turn down something like diaspora voting that is very critical to, involving Nigerians in diaspora in the further development of our fatherland.
Just like other Nigerians, you've been living, outside Nigeria for years now. Let us in on what obtains in other countries in terms of, either absentee voters or diaspora voting.
Quite simple, Sly. What you do is they create a window, a long corridor of perhaps a month or two before the actual election, where individuals can actually go to the embassy or order the voting materials at your embassy in the country where you live, and then, cast your vote, and then it is transmitted almost instantaneously to the INEC, the equivalent of INEC in other countries. It is as simple as that. Now, of course, there is also the process of indicating that you are interested in voting. That is pre-registration. And then on the day itself, you cast your vote. So you don't even have to leave your home to be able to do that. So it is as simple as that. And is it doable for Nigeria? Certainly, because there are even more complicated things that we do in Nigeria than this simple ABC process.
So why do you think Nigeria or any other African country should adopt diaspora voting? I'm quite sure some politicians may have asked you in your position as, Chairman Emeritus of Nigerians living in the diaspora.
Well, you have those that are genuine, that ask genuine questions, and of course they get the answer. And in the end, at the end of every conversation, they actually get convinced that, number one, this is doable. Number two, it is the right thing to do. But like I mentioned, galvanizing them, lobbying them is also something that appears to be absent. And I do hope that, Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, NITCOM, will learn from this and actually get things better organized. I mean, in terms of the lobby work across the board that is required. I think the essence of that also, was an issue in this particular circle. But give and take, the diaspora, they are now jigged up, and I believe that they will do whatever has to be done to get this, accomplished. The last word has certainly not been spoken on the diaspora voting.
In all of what we've discussed, do you think that diaspora voting may have been rejected owing to the absence of logistics, and perhaps since online voting is not in the Constitution too, you think that decision was ill-informed on facts that you have so far shared?
It may be that there are some sections of the legislative arm that are ill-informed. I have no doubt about that, and that is why I said that the arm of government, the entity of government that is responsible for diaspora affairs, has got to actually work across boards, breaking it down even up to state level, where they are supposed to also have, state diaspora commission. So that, you hold, breakfast with them, you hold lunch with them, information campaign, bring them across, because we do that when they come out here in the diaspora. And those of them that come out here in the diaspora are, weaponized sufficiently, to do the right thing. They were probably the only ones that voted for it. So a lot of work can now restart to do the right thing and get it done.
So how optimistic are you as Nigeria prepares towards the next election? 2023, for some politicians and some close watchers, even Nigerians like yourself in the diaspora, they're saying this is a make or mar election. What are the key indices you think Nigerians should look out for as they go to the polls?
Well, as they go to the poll, Nigerians should know that we have come to a point in our national political history where personalities shouldn't matter anymore. What should matter is what the individual that is asking us to vote him or her into office is bringing to the table. So far, there hasn't been, much conversations around that. What will the conversation that Nigerians have been seeing from those clamoring to lead the nation is about the personalities of those people, how long they've been in politics, who they have managed to help into one position or the other, not necessarily the intellectual baggage that they are bringing with them, and of course their pedigree. What have they been able to manage? What have they been able to accomplish in public service, in private, in the private sector, and so on and so forth? That's what Nigerians should begin. And then empathy. We need to check out for leaders with empathy. Do they really care about Nigeria? And then, and Nigerians. And then the point of actually being able to communicate effectively with the Nigerian people. Nigeria doesn't need a shy president. Nigeria needs a president that will be able to communicate with them, because it is important to reassure people, especially in times of crisis. And Nigeria is more or less in permanent crisis. So the next president should be one that should be able to engage Nigerians effectively, show empathy, but also have a sense of strategic leadership. In a diverse country as Nigeria, you do not ask for less than this.
Lastly, before I let you go, Collins Nweke, if these candidates were to have a debate leading up to the elections, what are the key, issues or points that Nigerians would want these people, men and women, to give answers or share their concerns on?
The first issue that the next president of Nigeria has to concentrate on is reconciling Nigeria. Nigeria is so very divided now that we are at the verge of a breakup. It's not going to happen. We will ultimately pull together. But we can only pull together if we have a president that has that unifying attitude, one that can bring people together. That's number one. And when they come together, they will begin to talk openly about the things that unite us rather than concentrating on the things that divide us. That's number one, dialogue. Number two, our constitution is defective as a nation. And I do not know anybody who has said otherwise. It's just that some sessions are saying, let us patch it up and just continue to manage. Not everything in the constitution is wrong. So let us concentrate on the ones that are right and so on and so forth. No, that's a wrong approach. The constitution needs to be overhauled. It has to be fit for purpose. It has to answer the Nigerian question as far as unity of purpose is concerned. At the moment, that is lacking. National ethos is also another issue. apart from our, national anthem, there is nothing that actually Nigerians can all relate to. We need to find that it is doable. There are other diverse countries in the world. They have managed to find their national ethos. Nigeria needs a leader that is able to get people together and begin to work towards one common ethos that all Nigerians can relate to. This then creates that oneness that is lacking. And so overnight, you begin to see the disappearance of all these agitations for be it Biafra, be it Oduduwa, be it a separate I don't know Arewa or whatever name they give to it. So I believe that these are surmountable challenges, and Nigeria has the right kind of individuals to drive all of these changes and set Nigeria afoot for the greatness that it has missed all of these decades.
I'd like to thank you very much for your time. Collins Nweke, Chairman Emeritus Board of Trustees, Nigerians in Diaspora Organization Europe.
Thank you, Sulai, for having me. Always a pleasure.
Well, coming up here on VSA, we'll be talking to a Nigerian woman who's really passionate about the girl child education and what the women want in Nigeria as they move towards the next election. Join us again. Well, at least 5 bills, 5, directly affecting Nigerian women were rejected by the National Assembly. Now, these included the quota for women in the National Assembly and the acceptance of foreign men who marry Nigerian women as Nigerians. The National Assembly also rejected the creation of special seats for women in the National Assembly. Well, joining me to talk more on some of these key things happening in Nigeria, it's Benedicta Ebuehi. She's a Chairmanship Aspirant, Etsako East local government area in Edo State, south of the country. Many thanks for joining us, and we're excited seeing you. But again, you've been in the fray and you've been in politics for a while. What do you make of the decision of Nigerian National Assembly?
Thank you very much, Sulaiman, for having me this evening. I think it is very shameful. It is pathetic. I don't know if you are aware that, all the first ladies, that's the governor's wives, are actually having a protest tomorrow at the National Assembly to drive home the point that what has happened at the National Assembly is not acceptable. I think it was Hillary Clinton who said a few years ago that it will actually take about 100 years for women and men to have parity or equity in politics. So it is a global trend. It's just that in some in places like Rwanda, in Angola, they have done very, very well. Nigeria, that claims to be the giant of Africa, unfortunately, we're still, doing very, very badly in terms of the participation of women in politics. I can only say it's a very shameful development. And I want to say that we are equal partners in progress. And, it's high time we begin to look at how we can integrate women into Nigerian politics, because when a country isolates a significant part of its population from development activities, your guess is only pathetic.
Well, there seemed to be a glitch in the audio connection. I hope it gets better, but I think I can hear you better now. But quickly here,
okay.
Well, as many as political groups and even influencers, wives of governors and politicians like yourself, are protesting this, we have actually seen that a sizable amount of Nigerian men, notably one of Nigeria's biggest entrepreneurs, Ted Peterside, is also giving his support to this. So how can women ensure that they're not left out in this seeming political progress being made, especially after the assent to the Electoral Act?
Well, the few men who are standing with Nigerian women need to be commended. Like Ted Peterside you just mentioned, he needs to be commended. But these are a very few men who are standing with Nigerian women. In the Nigerian population, I think about 50–60% of the Nigerian population are women. And if you look at the number of women we have, whether at the local government level, in politics, at the state level, or the National Assembly, it's nothing to write home about. So we appreciate these few men who are standing with us, but as women, we will continue to speak out. We will continue to drive home our demands. We will continue to lobby and get men to understand that you cannot neglect a significant group of your population and think that, there will be development in the country. It is not surprising that we are where we are in Nigeria because, women have not been given their pride of place. In everything we do, including politics, we have to do so much more than the men. We always have to do so much more than the men because, the men see us as the weaker sex. We are the weaker gender. And, a lot of our men still believe that the place of the woman is in the kitchen. But, countries that are doing well in terms of development today are countries that have incorporated their women into the political space. So I can tell you that women will not give up. We will continue to organize, we will continue to strategize, we will continue to speak with one voice until the men hear us. Because if we have no women in the National Assembly, tell me, Sulaiman, how are we going to drive home what women? On issues that concern women, men vote. On issues that concern children and families, men vote on our behalf. So until the Nigerian men begin to understand that the voice of women is also critical and that we are equal partners in development, unfortunately, I'm afraid Nigeria will continue to move in circles. So we will continue to keep at it. We're not giving up.
Well, listening to you, what readily comes to mind could mean that decision by the National Assembly is reflective of the Nigerian society. Is that what it is?
Yes, that is exactly what it is. I mean, I can take you back, to my own situation as a girl who was born into abject poverty. But I had brothers who were older than myself who were not forced to get married. But because I was the girl, I was forced into an abusive marriage to a man who was 25 years older than myself. I mean, he was old enough to be my own father. But I was forced into this relationship just so that bread could be on the table. So it is a reflection of what happens in the larger society where women or girls are treated as objects. We are not treated as, equal citizens. We are seen as commercial property. that can be used to bring money to the family when there's poverty. We are seen as, objects that should be targeted during wars. We are seen as people that are used to settle debts and scores. So women always bear the brunt in terms of war. We are the ones that suffer the most. So it is a reflection, correct, that it is a reflection of what happens in the larger Nigerian society, unfortunately. It's only by the grace of God I've been able to come out of the shackles of poverty. It's by the grace of God. And this is the situation for many, many girls like me, or many women like me who have gone through the process that I've gone through in my life.
Let me comment here. I'll come back to politics, but also this is also tied to politics. Listening to what you just said, I know you wrote a book. You just wrote a book, A Compelling True Story, Omone, the Chronicles of a Nigerian Girl Child. Now, let us in on, is this a part of your experience or a part of what some Nigerian, girl child experiences in her formative years?
Thank you very much, Sulaiman. This book, like you just said, is a compelling true story. And this is the story of my life. At least 98% of what is in this book is my own personal experience. And I decided to document this experience to help and encourage time, or who have actually passed through this past that I went through many years ago and are feeling so disillusioned or discouraged about life and at the point of giving up. So this book was written because everywhere I spoke about my experience in the past, my experience of being a child bride, people asked me, particularly in Europe, people asked me whether I had written a book, because I don't want to die with the experience I had. I have so much to tell the world, and I decided then to document it so that people who are coming behind me can actually read this book and know that there's light at the end of the tunnel. I can look back now and recollect, over 35 years ago, where I had two main options. And the two main options that were available to me were, one, to go the path of prostitution, or two, to remain focused, dedicated, committed, and hopeful. I had to encourage myself, like the Bible said, David encouraged himself. I had to encourage myself. So I decided to stay in the path of hard work, dedication, commitment, and look at me today, rising from that child bride to the position of becoming a local government chairperson, and now I'm running again. So I wrote this book to encourage everyone who is at the very margin of society and feeling hopeless, that there's, they want to give up. There's no hope for tomorrow. There is hope for tomorrow. That is the main reason I wrote this book, to encourage not just Nigerian girls, but to encourage girls across the world who have found themselves in very poor situations because of, the families they were born into, which was not their fault, by the way. So that is the reason for this book. I hope that people can read it even in the remotest parts of the world and believe that tomorrow can actually be better if they keep hope alive.
Biographies or stories, that people can actually relate with goes a long way in helping build societies. It affects a lot of people and make young people see that there is hope, as you rightly put it. On the show, we've spoken to a number of women leaders across the continent, in Kenya, in Ethiopia, in Uganda, and in South Africa. Now, that brings us to asking you how you think women, especially in Nigeria, can be more involved, politically speaking, even without such bills showing a level of support?
Yes, I think if women can organize themselves together, if we can speak with one voice, if we can support each other, there is no reason why we should not make significant inroads into the beholds us to continue to speak out, continue to support each other, continue to strategize, continue to lobby. These are the things we need to do. We can't give up. The truth of the matter is that the Nigerian woman has been reduced to a level where bread and butter issues are the main, issues facing the Nigerian woman. So people sell their votes, women sell their votes for the possibility to get maybe even 5,000 naira just to put bread and butter on the table for their children. So I believe that if we can unite as women and speak with one voice and support each other and even do crowdfunding, when women are going forward for political positions, we should try and do crowdfunding and support them, because politics requires money. It requires finances, it requires funds, resources. Therefore, it is very difficult for women to do this on their own. The men that are sympathetic to the cause of women should work with women, join us so that we can turn the fortunes of Nigeria around. Women don't have a lot to give. We're the natural product of society. We're the natural caregivers. So it is natural for us to know what to do, to raise our families, and to lift Nigeria out of the present crisis situation that we are facing.
And let's close on your aspiration quickly here. You've been a grassroots council chairman before, and you're running again. Are there challenges? What's the conversation you're having with women who have always before now in Nigeria been used to run campaigns, and when the politician comes in, he or she never remembers these women who were the foot soldiers, who were politically used to gain that office?
Well, yes, I'm a grassrooter. I actually live among my people. Some of my colleagues live, in the cities, and then they come home to do their work and return to the cities. But I live with my people, because when I was elevated, I made a conscious decision to live with them so that I can actually understand what they go through. It's not as if I didn't know, but I wanted to know at a deeper level by wearing the shoes that they wore, by living among them. So the truth of the matter is, like I said, women are the real voters. And then look at them. At the grassroots level, it's women that actually vote. But at the end of the day, nobody remembers them once they are in office. That is why I'm saying that we need to.
Well, I need to jump in here. Apologies. I think we haven't had, problems with the audio connection there. Well, I'm hoping that we can do this again if you can hear us, but because we're experiencing some bad, audio connection, making it almost impossible for us to hear what you're saying in your closing remark. But we'd like to say thank you for your time. Thanks for your coming on the show, and of course, inspiring young Africans and Nigerians to take up, leadership positions. We've been speaking with Benedicta Ebuehi. She's a chairmanship aspirant for Etsako East local government area, and also an author who's just written a book chronicling her experience as a girl bride in that part of the country. Well, we'll return again tomorrow on the show here on The Square. I'm Sulaiman. Many thanks for watching.